The high priest wore one fruit on his hem, not figs, not olives. He was the only person permitted into the chamber. No one was permitted to enter. The fruit on his hem was the only fruit on his hem. Why this one? What did they know about this fruit? The Hebrew word is rimmon. It appears more than 30 times in the Bible. On the priestly vestments, on the bronze pillars of Solomon's temple, in the 7 species that define the Promised Land, in the Song of Songs as the figure of consummation, on coins struck by every Jewish revolt against Rome. Why this fruit? The pomegranate has no agricultural advantage in the Levant. Figs are sweeter. Olives are more useful. Dates yield more calories per acre. The pomegranate has one feature none of the others have. Open one. Hundreds of seeds packed inside a single rind. Interior multiplicity contained within unified boundary. The ancient world saw the form and rated everywhere. Many threads woven into one priestly robe. Many ornaments cast on one bronze pillar. Many commandments in one Torah. Many seeds of love in one orchard. And 3,000 years later, many compounds inside one fruit. The pomegranate is the only fruit whose structure is its meaning. The image is consistent across every chapter that follows. The form was always the message. The book of Exodus describes a garment unlike any other. The high priest's meal, the blue robe of the ephod, has a hem unlike any other hem. Around the bottom edge, pomegranates of blue, purple, and crimson yarns, twisted, alternating with bells of pure gold. A bell and a pomegranate, a bell and a pomegranate, all around the hem of the robe. The instruction is given in Exodus chapter 28. It is repeated nearly verbatim in chapter 39. No other sacral object has its pattern specified twice. The bells will be heard when the priest goes in. The pomegranates will not be heard at all. The priest enters a chamber, the rest of the nation cannot enter. He carries on his hem the only fruit the Torah names among the sacred things he wears. Why? Josephus, the 1st century historian, was a priest by birth. He saw the Second Temple vestments before they were destroyed. In Wars of the Jews, Book 5, he gives the priestly cosmology. The bells signified thunder, the pomegranates lightning. Linen was earth, blue was sky. The priest walked into the chamber as a localized cosmic storm. The fruit on his hem was the visible flash of divine power. The Talmud preserves a Tanaitic dispute about the count. Either 72 pomegranates and 72 bells, or 36 of each. Rabbi Hanina, reading the same passage, adds something stranger. Let that which emits sound come and atone for the voice that emitted evil speech. The hem atones for gossip. The bells are not music, they are reparation for what the human voice does when it is not careful. The pomegranates beside the bells are the silent witnesses, many seeds, one rind, many words, one mouth. Solomon's Temple, 9th century before our era. At the entrance of the Great Hall stand 2 freestanding bronze pillars, 27 feet tall. The southern one is named Jachin, the northern one Boaz. Each pillar's capital is wrapped in a bronze lattice, what the text calls a network. On each network, 2 rows of pomegranates. The first count comes from the construction record. 1 Kings, chapter 7. 200 pomegranates around the second capital. 2 rows of 100 each. The second count comes from the chronicler several centuries later. 2 Chronicles 4:13. 400 pomegranates for the 2 networks. 2 rows of 100 per pillar. 2 pillars, 400 fruits. The accounts match. The third count is stranger. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 52, records the moment the Babylonians dismantled the temple. Verse by verse, weight by weight, ornament by ornament. When the soldiers came to the capitals, the chronicler watching wrote down what they took down. 96 pomegranates to a side. All the pomegranates upon the network were 100 round about. 96 on a side, 100 total. For 2,000 years, this looked like a scribal error. It is not. The Hebrew word the translators render to a side is ruach. It does not mean to a side. It means to a wind, to a compass point. 24 pomegranates faced east, 24 faced west, 24 north, 24 south. 96 were visible from any single direction. The remaining 4 sat at the diagonal corners, hidden from any single vantage, but counted in the 100. The destruction account is the most precise architectural observation of the bronze capitals ever recorded. The Babylonian soldiers counted what they could see while they tore the temple down. What they could not see was still there. 1988. A small artifact arrived at the Israel Museum in Jerusalem through an anonymous Swiss intermediary. 4 centimeters tall, 6 grams of carved bone, first described as ivory, later identified as hippopotamus. The body of the object was shaped as a pomegranate in early bloom, piriform, with 4 surviving petals of the original 6 at the calyx. A hole pierced it from the base, where a shaft or scepter had once been fitted. Around its shoulder, in Paleo-Hebrew letters, an inscription: "To the temple of Yahweh, holy to the priests." The museum acquired it for $550,000. It became the centerpiece of the institution's biblical archaeology collection. For a decade and a half, scholars, journalists, and television documentaries treated it the same way, as the only physical artifact ever publicly linked to Solomon's temple. A finial, likely from the head of a priestly scepter, from the priesthood that wore pomegranates on its hem. Then, in 2003, the Israel Antiquities Authority assembled a forensic committee. Yuval Gorin, Shmuel Ahituv, Avner Ayalon, Miriam Bar Matthews. Their findings were published in the Israel Exploration Journal. The conclusion was bifurcated and devastating. The object was authentically late Bronze Age. The inscription was not. Under microscopy, the engraver's tool strokes ended neatly around an ancient fracture in the bone. The kind of work a forger does when carving around damage that already exists. The patina inside the letters was not patina. The committee's isotope analysis identified it as a synthetic mixture: marine and continental carbonates, clay, corroded bronze, modern silicone adhesive. The letters had been incised in the late 20th century, onto an authentic Bronze Age object, by someone who knew what scholars wanted to find. 2004. The antiquities dealer Oded Golan was indicted in connection with a larger forgery ring that also included the James ossuary and the Jehoash inscription. The trial ran 7 years. 128 expert witnesses, 13,000 pages of court protocol. March 2012. Judge Aharon Farkash delivered a 474-page verdict. Golan and his co-defendants were acquitted of forgery. But the verdict's wording was precise. There is nothing in these findings which necessarily proves that the items were authentic. The court did not authenticate the pomegranate. It said the state failed to prove forgery beyond reasonable doubt. The Israel Museum had already made its decision. In 2007, the artifact left the permanent exhibition. It sits in a storeroom today, occasionally surfaced as a teaching case in archaeological authentication. The fruit on the priest's hem was real. The fruit they tried to sell us as the priests was not. The Mishnah is the foundational corpus of rabbinic law, edited around the year 200 of our era. Tractate Kalim governs the ritual cleanness of household vessels. When is a vessel clean? When does a hole in it break its cleanness? How big does the hole have to be? Kelim 17:1 gives the rule. All vessels of householders, their measure is in pomegranates. A wooden vessel with a hole the size of a pomegranate is disqualified. Smaller than a pomegranate, intact. Larger, broken. Read that again. The rabbis did not choose an apple, a fig, an egg, a coin, or an arbitrary measure of width. They chose a pomegranate. Kelim 17:5 specifies further. The pomegranate they spoke of, not small, not large, but middling. In rabbinic law, the middle-sized pomegranate is the literal unit of measurement. The fruit did not symbolize abundance. It was the ruler the abundance was measured with. There is a piece of Jewish folklore that everyone repeats. Every pomegranate contains exactly 613 seeds. That matches the 613 mitzvot, the commandments of Torah. The claim gets retold every Rosh Hashanah at the New Year Seder with a special blessing. May our merits be as many as the seeds of the pomegranate. The claim is usually attributed to medieval commentators. Rabbeinu Bahya ben Asher in the 13th century, the Tashbetz Katan. Earlier sources sometimes named, never quoted. They do not say it. Bahya ben Asher's commentary on Deuteronomy 8 verse 8, the 7 species verse where you would most expect to find the connection, discusses agricultural abundance and numerological motifs at length, but never makes the 613 claim. The Tashbetz Katan does not contain it. Neither does the Zohar. Neither does any Geonic source. The first explicit codification of the literal 613 seeds claim appears in the 19th century. The Malbim, who died in 1879. The Chasam Sofer, who died in 1839. 2 centuries ago, not 8, modern botany confirms it is a fiction. Pomegranates contain anywhere from 165 to over 1,300 seeds, depending on cultivar and growing season. The average is 6 to 800. 613 exactly is a beautiful coincidence, never a rule. But the metaphor the literal claim grew out of is genuinely ancient. Talmud Bavli, Tractate Berakot, page 57a, a rabbinic homily on Israel itself. Even the emptiest among you are as full of mitzvot as the pomegranate is full of seeds. Not a count, not a botany claim, an image of moral abundance, an unusually generous one. The seeds are the figure. The number is later folklore. The Mishnah codified the pomegranate as the unit of measurement. The Talmud codified it as the figure of merit. 2,000 years before the 19th century rabbis tried to count it literally, the abundance was already the point. The structure was always the message, the Song of Songs, the Bible's love poem, older than its rabbis, older than the synagogue tradition that argued for centuries about whether to keep it inside the canon. Pomegranates appear 6 times in its 8 chapters. The cheek of the beloved. Like a slice of pomegranate are your cheeks behind your veil, the interior flush made visible through a translucent boundary. The poem does not compare the cheek to a flower or a fruit at large. It compares the cheek to the inside of a pomegranate cut open, the redness that was concealed, exposed. The orchard. Your branches are an orchard of pomegranates with choice fruits. The Hebrew phrase is pardes rimenim, the garden enclosed. Female sexuality as multiplicity contained within unified form, the same image at a different scale, and the juice. I would give you spiced wine to drink, the juice of my pomegranate, not a generic fruit drink. The specific juice of the specific fruit whose structure has carried the meaning all along. The offer of consummation, named with the fruit that means consummation. 16 centuries pass. Moses Cordovero, the 16th century Kabbalist of Safed, picks up Song of Songs 4:13 and writes a book. He titles it Pardes Rimonim, the Orchard of Pomegranates. Inside, he uses the fruit structure to map the Sephirot, the 10 divine emanations through which the infinite enters the finite. Many seeds, one rind, many emanations, one God. The image scales without breaking. Human intimacy, divine architecture. Same fruit, same logic. The garden enclosed, the fruit that meant abundance. Pharmacologically, it is abundance. Open the rind. Inside, 3 pharmacologies running at once. Punicalagin, the dominant L-gitanin, concentrated in the peel and pressed into the juice. Punicic acid, an omega-5 fatty acid, concentrated in the seeds. L-arginine precursors that the gut microbiome transforms into something the modern pharmacology literature calls a mitophagy activator. Each compound a separate medicine, all of them in one fruit. The structure is the medicine. 2004, Israeli vascular medicine. Michael Aviram and a team at Rambam Healthcare Campus in Haifa followed 10 patients with carotid artery stenosis, the dangerous narrowing of the artery feeding the brain, and gave them pomegranate juice every day for up to 3 years. They measured the wall of the artery, blood pressure, the oxidative damage to LDL cholesterol, the activity of an antioxidant enzyme called paraoxonase. The wall of the artery thinned, up to 30% in the first year. In the control group, who did not drink the juice, the same wall thickened. Paraoxonase activity rose by 83%. The oxidation of LDL fell by 90%. Aviram and colleagues, Clinical Nutrition, 2004, Volume 23, pages 423 to 433. The study was small, 10 patients, open label. A larger randomized trial followed in 2009 by Davidson and colleagues, 289 patients in a double-blind design, and it did not replicate the carotid wall reversal in a moderate-risk population. The story was incomplete. 2024, 2 decades on. Hossein Bahari and an international team pooled every randomized trial of pomegranate consumption that had ever been published. 22 trials, hundreds of patients. The systematic review verdict: pomegranate consumption reduces systolic blood pressure by 7.87 millimeters of mercury, diastolic by 3.23, both with vanishingly small p-values. The effect concentrates in patients whose baseline pressure exceeds 130. Bahari and colleagues, Phytotherapy Research, 2024, Volume 38, pages 2,234 to 2,248. 22 trials, 7 points off the top number. The juice the high priest wore on his hem still moves blood pressure. The deeper pharmacology runs through the gut. The pomegranate's L-argintannins are too large to cross the intestinal wall intact. They reach the colon, where specific bacterial communities, present in some humans, absent in others, convert them into a small molecule called urolithin A. Urolithin A does something extraordinary. It activates mitophagy, the cellular process by which exhausted mitochondria, the cell's energy plants, are dismantled and replaced. The discovery was published by Andrew and colleagues in Nature Metabolism in 2019. A 2022 randomized trial in older adults, Liu and colleagues in JAMA Network Open, gave urolithin A for 4 months and measured muscle endurance and inflammation. The primary endpoint, peak power output, was not met. The secondary endpoints, muscle endurance and inflammatory markers, improved significantly. The mechanism is real. The clinical case is still being built. The catch: not every human body makes urolithin A. In one challenge study, only 40% of healthy American adults converted pomegranate L-argintannins into the molecule at a significant level. The fruit delivers the substrate. Your gut microbiome decides whether you get the medicine. The pomegranate did not get the memo about being simple. Many compounds, many pathways, many human bodies. The form was always the message. One fruit, many seeds, many threads on a priestly hem, many ornaments on a bronze pillar, many commandments in one Torah, many emanations in one God, many compounds in one rind. Many pressures dropped, many mitochondria renewed. The structure was always the message. If you would like to spend more time at this table, these are the sacred remedies.